Good evening, I'm Linord Moudou. Vincent Macquarie is off today. This is Africa 54. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has wrapped up a historic visit to Somalia that included talks with the country's president and other top officials. Secretary Kerry traveled Tuesday from Nairobi to Mogadishu, becoming the first sitting U.S. Secretary of State to visit the East African nation. He spent about 3.5 hours in the capital, Mogadishu. Kerry's visit was not publicly announced by U.S. officials in advance. For more details on Secretary Kerry's visit to Somalia, VOA State Department correspondent Pam Dockins joins us live via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya. Pam, this was a big show of support to the Somali government, right? What is the significance of this trip?
Yes, actually it was. As you mentioned, the State Department tried to keep the trip under wraps for security concerns. The President, the Prime Minister, and regional leaders met with Secretary of State Kerry. He also had an opportunity to meet with members of civil society in Mogadishu, and this included Somali peace activist Fartoon Adnan and Young African Leaders Fellows.
So why now for a Secretary of State to make this visit to Somalia?
The U.S. has been gradually stepping up its engagement with Somalia. Ahead of the trip, senior State Department officials said the trip would be a bid to show support for Somalia's progress and to also thank regional countries that have combined taken part in the African Union peacekeeping mission to fight al-Shabaab in Somalia. Secretary Kerry said that Somalis had made great progress. He said that he was visiting the country because the country is turning around. He called Somalis resilient and said they were people who were determined to reclaim their country and their future from terrorists.
And Mr. Kerry met with the President and the Prime Minister. What were some highlights of this discussion?
Some of the highlights of the discussions, in addition to talks about counterterrorism and talking about the role of the Somali government, some of the highlights were the fact that Kerry also had an opportunity to meet with a wide range of people during his relatively short visit. In addition to meeting with regional leaders, he met with political activists and also young people.
So what is the big takeaway from this visit, really?
The big takeaway is that it's part of a broader U.S. effort to engage with Somalia. Back in February, President Barack Obama announced that he had nominated Catherine Danini to serve as the first U.S. ambassador to Somalia since 1991. And if confirmed, she will initially work out of Kenya, but will make frequent trips to Somalia as part of the U.S. effort to engage with Somalia.
And finally, Pam, what's next on Secretary Kerry's agenda?
We leave from here in Kenya early tomorrow and travel to Djibouti. There, the Secretary of State will focus largely on the role that Djibouti has played in helping with the evacuation of foreigners out of Yemen. Quite a few of the Americans who've been in Yemen have used Djibouti, have used Djibouti as their initial stop-off point before returning to the United States. Part of the visit is for the Secretary to thank the government for its support. From there, Secretary of State Kerry travels to Saudi Arabia, where he will hold talks on regional security, and then he goes to Paris for a Gulf Cooperation Council meeting.
Busy agenda there. Pam, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're quite welcome.
And that was VOA State Department correspondent Pam Dawkins reporting live via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya.